Number 3 in the dullest imperium might be the most depressing one, really. You have to understand that the nation of Africa never really saw too many great leaders. Leaders that could actually change the foundation in which business was done there. In the Congo, there was a simple man named Patrice Lumumba. Patrice Lumumba was a democratic elected leader of the Congo right after they kicked the Belgians the fuck out of there, which they should. Belgian waffles are a little bit overrated, as far as I'm concerned. Belgian chocolate, hit or miss, depending on who you buy it from. But also horrible colonizers. And Patrice really looked at his time there as a way of showing the world what the black man can do when working in liberty. And he wanted it to be the crown jewel of Africa, this democratically elected country. And spoiler alert, we're not going to have any newsreels on it because this kind of cover up or this kind of overthrow doesn't really get covered as much. It gets thrown into all the rest of the African overthrows that the CIA has done. But this one to me particularly stands out because this one had the most promise, or at least a leader you could really believe in. This guy had Bill Clinton, Barack Obama electability. This guy was able to speak and make you believe in his words. And when he spoke to you, you felt like he was only speaking to you. He had that kind of electrifying power. And I also think he's just a smooth dude. He looks like a real smooth dude. Like, I feel like the entire time he's just like, listen, girl, you want to get free? You want to take care of our own resources? Why do I give it to everybody else? It's our resources. It's just me and you, boo. It's just me, you, and this metal we producing. And let's be honest. Why do I give it to them? Fuck them. Just me and you. Let me light a candle. Let me show you what I mean by freedom. And boy, did he. And it was impossible not to fall for that guy. It's impossible. He had too much charisma. He had a smooth look. And he was highly educated. This was a guy who was invested in something. This is a guy who was invested in something bigger than what he already had. Because the Congo at this time was going through kind of a separation with the state of Katanga. And he was trying to keep them together. And he reached out to the U.S. going, well, they believe in freedom. They believe in keeping things together. They fought a war about it. So let's see if they'll get into it. They weren't into it. Well, we did get into it when he went over to the Ruskies. And he was like, hey, do you guys want to help? And they went, well, we'll try, but we promise nothing. And ultimately, Katanga still chose to be a separate state on its own. But once again, in his mind, he saw a united Africa. He saw an Africa that could be modernized if it took control of its own resources. And what have we learned about taking control of your own resources? No one wants you to do that. Stop it. Stop it now. The American Metal Company wasn't going to stand for this shit. So they called their lawyers. Can you guess who represented them? Let's say it together in a joint disappointment. Sullivan and Cromwell. Yes, the same people that represented United Fruit, the same people that represented the Anglo-Iranian oil company, also represented the American Metal Company. And as you can guess, who did they call when they were upset? Allen Dulles. And Allen, he's coming off 2 coups. The last one was a bit easier than the first. So he's like, all right, I can do this. This one won't be too difficult. This guy thinks he's good, but I'm Allen Dulles. And I'm going to let him know how I get down. He was out there in the streets, man. He let the streets know he was back. He waited a bit, but he was back again with a trifecta, the end to his trilogy. So what did he do? This time he went, I'm thinking about the future. Let's put somebody new over. Let's get us a 28-year-old colonel. And they did. We're not going to name him here because fuck that guy, sellout. So eventually our boy Lumumba ends up in house arrest. But Patrice is smooth. So he talked his way out of that house arrest, if you know what I mean. Listen, you really going to lock me up like this? You think they're going to care about you when this is over? They're going to take shit from you too. They're going to take shit from everybody. It's our medal. It's our country. You really going to let these white people put your own countrymen in jail? You going to be that guy? You don't want to be that guy? Let me out. Let me out. Come on. You know you want to. And I promise, when I'm out, I'm out. And I'm going to hook this whole thing up and we're going to get back on track. You just got to believe me, baby. You just got to believe. And man, did they believe, because he escaped house arrest. And everywhere he went, every town he went to, they were like, please talk to us, give us a speech. And he's like, y'all gotta relax, because those talk downs don't work all the time. Like, I gotta hold on to some for myself. I gotta hold on to some for at home too, because the wife she's gonna want me to do a talk down from time to time. You know? You always gotta save some for home. Can't just be giving out the talent everywhere. I save some jokes for home, some dumb bits. Remember, never take for granted the territories you're already over in. You know, you could very easily be not over. You can get buried very quickly. That's how those things work. But anyway, the Mamba is on the run and he gets to the small village of Lodi. But across the river, he sees Stanleyville, and Stanleyville loves Patrice. And he knows if he gets there, he can lay low for a while and mount his resistance. So he's got a little entourage with him, former government officials that used to rock with him. He's got his wife and his toddler. They're about to make this happen. So he goes on the first boat just to make sure everything's cool in Stanleyville, come back for the wife and kid. But as he gets there, the military that had been dealing with the roadblocks that villagers were putting up to protect Patrice have finally arrived. And they've now captured his wife and toddler. His crew's like, don't go back. If you go back, it's over. If you go back, it's done. Everything we fought for, the future of Africa, all of it, it's done, man. You can't. And we understand it's your wife and kid. But this is so much bigger. There's something big happening here. But Patrice, he knows one very simple rule, and he tells this to his people. When one chooses to struggle for his country, one must accept it will end in tragedy. And he goes back. And then they proceed to beat him in front of his wife. And they beat his toddler as well. And then the CIA is like, all right, we can arrest him, but it ain't going to work if he's still alive. He's going to mean too much. We got to get rid of this dude. We got to get him out of here. Send him away to the annals of history. So, one of the Belgians they know, and the Belgian government goes, well, you can take him to the state of Katanga because they don't really fuck with him over there. And there'll be a farmhouse waiting. And you can have your way with him. Which they did. They beat the shit out of him. They tortured him. All that was left of him in the end was a tooth that they gave his family in the 2000s. And it's interesting how, if you really look at this story, it's kind of Wakanda forever. Vibranium, metal in the Congo. Maybe Stanley knew about Alan Dulles. Maybe Stanley was trying to put us on to some game. I have long suspected Stanley's a bit smarter than people give him credit for. The Mole Man represents a bunch of homeless in New York, and he clearly despised them, allegedly. Tossing that out there. But with the people of the Congo, he empathized, and he also hated Alan Dulles. So my theory is that's what he based it on. It seems a bit too close, doesn't it? But it is it's kind of sad in that way, where you can find the parallels in modern pop culture and actual history and go, well, nothing much has changed in that respect. And that's why I feel Lumumba should be known as much as Malcolm X, as much as Martin Luther King, because I feel like what he meant was far greater than I think he's given credit for. He represented a hope of what could be, and sadly never got to be. Mandela eventually came out, and he did his thing. But I think Patrice had a grander vision. And we'll never know what he would have accomplished with that grander vision. Dulles got his third ring, his trifecta. But some war horses don't know when it's over. Eisenhower kind of knew it was over. Well, mainly because his term was coming to an end. And it was time for him to go. But in the end, he realized that Allen had only left him with a legacy of ashes. And he confronted Allen about this. He told him this. You left me nothing but a legacy of ashes. That's how I will be remembered. It's kind of like that moment in Gladiator where Marcus Aurelius is talking to Maximus, and he goes, how will I be remembered? The philosopher? The tyrant? But what Eisenhower is really remembered for, and I always felt a little mixed baggy on this, not so much as a general, but for the speech he gave towards the end. After he had already okayed these overthrows, he finally gives a speech telling the truth. And in the end, we give him more credit for that than we do the actual overthrows he okayed. We will play an excerpt of that speech now.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Sure, you heard that term before.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Nice sentiment, Ike, but too little too late, huh?